Hey gang, if you were one of the people that picked up the latest Scent Club mystery box, there would have been a sample in your kit from the House of Mind Games called Prodigy. Let me know if you got the kit and let me know if you got to sample Prodigy. But today, I'm talking about Mind Games fragrances and most importantly, 4 of their latest fragrances, which includes Prodigy in this white bottle here. We've got Mentor in this dark bottle here. We also have Opera Mate in this dark bottle here. And then finally, we have Counterplay in this silver bottle here. So these are the 4 latest launches from Mind Games, and I'm going to talk to you about them in this video. There is a discount code for the fragrances. Sebastian15 saves you 15% off these 4 fragrances until Monday night and over at the Mind Games website, which I have linked in the info box. Find out about these 4 fragrances coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Sebastian, talking to you about Mind Games fragrances. Let me know if you're a fan of this house and which fragrances are your favorites. And again, as I said, they've launched 4 fragrances and I'm going to discuss them with you today. But do let me know if you got your nose on Prodigy, especially since it was in the latest mystery box. Add a comment below. But do take advantage of the discount code. It only lasts until Monday night. It's Sebastian15, and that saves you 15% off of these 4 fragrances. So let's get started with the fragrances. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is Prodigy, because that's the one that we featured in Mystery Box. And the Prodigy is this. And if you don't know about these fragrances, Prodigy and also Mentor, they come in more special boxes, not the traditional boxes that the last 2 fragrances I'm going to talk to you about. They come with ingredients and things like that that are featured in the fragrances. So very nice presentation with very unique items in there that you can actually sample and things like that. So these are really nicely done and really great fragrances. Also, all 4 of the fragrances are very long lasting for me. And I'm going to tell you which one has more projection, because since they are all 4 long lasting, a couple of them are a bit more subdued when I wore them, and a couple of them had much more projection. And I'll let you know all those details. But let's talk about Prodigy first. It's considered a floral woody fragrance created by Nathalie Benareau. I don't know who this perfumer is. Never actually experienced any of her fragrances until this. Perhaps I have and I didn't know the perfumer for that fragrance, but this is the first time I'm hearing about her and her creation. And this is Prodigy, which has notes of sandalwood, vanilla, blonde woods, creamy cafe latte, patchouli, rose milk, longoza flower, cinnamon, bergamot. These are the notes that are in here, and to me this is one of the best wearing experiences I've experienced. It also takes you on a journey, has different sides, so it starts off experiencing like a Middle Eastern fragrance, kind of. Well, it does remind me a little bit of Intense Cafe, not smelling like it, but that's where I get a bit of a Middle Eastern vibe. And the fragrance kind of dries down to this powdery, almost like makeup smelling powdery experience with the fragrance. It's a really great wearing experience. The fact that you start out something different and then experience something more like a traditional French perfumery, which I quite like. Going from that Middle Eastern side to the French side was really refreshing to experience, and also very, very long lasting. But this to me is not as milky lactonic as the Montal Intense Cafe. And also, just like the Montal Intense Cafe, you've got a cafe latte experience without much of coffee. I don't get much coffee from this fragrance, but you do get that kind of rose latte experience. And the thing is also, this is not as lactonic, it's more powdery compared to the Montal. So you do have that going for it, but it's overdosed with sandalwood and vanilla. You've got quite a bit of it. It's quite woody, but also powdery. And then the cafe latte experience, more of the milk and the froth rather than the coffee. And then the rose and the milk and all this stuff comes in. And it's a really delicious gourmand that's not necessarily uber gourmand, but still acts like a gourmand for me. Really wonderful experience. Very, very long lasting for me. And I like the different directions it went in. And it settles so deliciously on skin. And this is where it kind of reminded me more of a French traditional kind of powdery, almost like makeup, as I was saying. Like, it reminded me of something makeup-like, powdery, rosy, maybe a bit of violet and things like that comes in. But I like that it has multiple sides. It's an adventure more than just a plain old fragrance you wear and go through smelling something very similar. But starting out with that kind of Middle Eastern style up top, almost also like there's oud and things like that in the fragrance, and then developing into that very kind of makeup-like powdery traditional French perfumery direction. Let's quickly smell this on strip and let you know a little bit about it. But really like that. I just wish, I guess next, compared to the next fragrance I'm going to talk to you about, the next one has much more projection for me compared to this. But all four of the fragrances have great longevity, which is something that we really like. But I feel like you can't have the same kind of projection in fragrances all the time. It also, depends on the ingredients and notes that are in it. I'm not saying it has no projection whatsoever, but compared to the next one, the next one's much louder, if that makes sense. But super fantastic fragrance. I like that it's in the white bottle because it has a very white smell. It's very kind of pure and almost angelic as well. But when I'm saying angelic, it's not necessarily meaning that it's kind of light. It's pretty hefty, but fantastic fragrance. Really love it. And I'm glad I was able to feature this one in the mystery box. So that's Prodigy from the House of Mind Games. So the second fragrance I'm talking about is Mentor. And as I said, these two fragrances, Prodigy and Mentor, have that more extensive packaging. They come with two ingredients that you can kind of smell and play around with to see what goes into creating the fragrances. But Mentor is considered an edible amber created by Carlos Viñals. Is that how you say his name? Again, I'm not familiar with this perfumer either. The first two perfumers I'm unfamiliar with, but I like their work. Between the first two fragrances also, I prefer the smell of Prodigy, but I like the heft of Mentor. But Mentor has notes of Boya oud, sandalwood, amber coffee, creme de cassis, dark plums, salted caramel, Italian lemons, tonka beans. So it says edible amber, right? And it has edible gourmand notes here. But for me, those gourmand edible notes go in to create more of an amber effect rather than turning out to be like a full-on gourmand fragrance. For me, this is more of an amber woody style, and it has those edible notes that are in here. The oud stands out, sandalwood stands out. Amber coffee, I feel like you do get a coffee-like experience in this, more in Mentor compared to Prodigy, because you have that cafe latte experience in Prodigy, but I got no coffee from it. Here you do get it. It's definitely prominent. It's there, noticeable. But lots of fruits as well. And all these ingredients, the gourmand notes, goes in to create a gourmand style amber, which doesn't fully go gourmand for me. It doesn't. But very sticky, very caramelly, a bit salty and gooey. For me, between the two fragrances, the Mentor is a lot stickier and a lot amberier, gooier, molassesy comes to mind. And it has really far reach with the projection, which I quite like. But as I was saying earlier, I prefer the smell of Prodigy over Mentor. But everybody's different. You might think this one's the better one for you. But I like the heft and the performance of this a little more than Prodigy. But both of them are great. But with my preference, it's Prodigy. Let's quickly smell Mentor and let you know a little bit more about it. Up top, you get the oud and the woods. But the fruits come in. They definitely are noticeable. The salted caramel stickiness and the saltiness. And then the tartness of the lemons are all in here. They're combined really nicely to create a wonderful gourmand take on an amber. As I was saying, doesn't fully go gourmand, but you'll notice it. Mostly the fruits for me and the caramel's stickiness. But again, it doesn't turn it into a full-on gourmand. It's more of an amber. For me, woody amber is the right name for this. And you experience the woodiness of the oud. It's got a slight bit of funk, not a lot. And a lot of the amber comes in as well. Wonderful fragrance, but again, between the two, I much prefer Prodigy, but both of them are great. So up next, we're going to the traditional packaging for the next two fragrances, and it's Opera Mate, this one right here. This one is super delicious. For me, it acts like a fragrance that maybe Dior Homme Intense and By the Fireplace got married and had a baby. Once again, also, between the two, for me, Opera Mate is the less loud compared to Counterplay. But for me, as smells go, my two favorites are Prodigy and Opera Mate. And let me tell you about Opera Mate. So it's a woody edible amber. That's what it's considered. And well, that's what it says on their website, on the Mind Games website. This is created by Christelle Laprade, and it's featuring notes of creme brulee, caramel, sandalwood, roasted chestnuts, labdanum, suede, vetiver, davana, grapefruit zest. Too yummy, right? It's a suede leather, very cozy, very comforting, but there's a reminder of Dior Homme Intense. Maybe not Dior Homme Parfum, but there's a reminder of Dior Homme Intense. Also, given that whole kind of smoky chestnuts roasting on an open fire kind of an experience. It's a super, super cozy fragrance. And I like that you've got gourmand notes here mixed in with that whole kind of powdery experience of something like Dior Homme Intense. Fantastic. It does settle to an amber when it's drying down, but lots of woods here as well. And the chestnut smell is really, really great. Gives me a bit of a holiday vibe. I like that about it, where here in the States, we don't consume chestnuts as much as they do in Europe, but we can consume it by wearing fragrances that feature the note of chestnut, right? If you guys haven't experienced the fragrances of Christelle Laprade, I actually got to meet her at an event for Mind Games in Southern California. She seems to create some really great fragrances, and I feel like she's created a lot of the fragrances for Mind Games. And I believe she has Commodities Milk. I think that's her, which is one of my favorite commodity fragrances. So she knows how to do these kind of very cozy, milky, gourmand fragrances. But this smells fantastic, guys. Really, really wonderful. They don't mention orris. I'm getting orris-like qualities. That's why I said reminds me of Dior Homme Intense. But I get orris powderiness in here. But it could be various notes mixed together. It could be the suede leather as well. But super fantastic. If you like anything with chestnuts, gourmand notes, and also suede. Suede leather is a really great cozy type of leather. It rarely goes animalic. And mixed in with these gourmand notes, it makes for a very cozy wear. Absolutely love this one. But again, as I said, it's not as loud as the next one, but it's super fantastic. So that is Opera Mate from the house of Mind Games. Let me know if you're familiar with that one. And then last but not least, we've got COUNTERPLAY, this one right here. And I was very, very cautious with this one. I have a challenging time with melons, and this is a melon bomb. It's almost like a melon guava bomb. It's uber fruity, but so loud. When I first wore this for the first time, I was like choked out because it was just extremely powdery, but also sticky, gooey, whereas PRODIGY and Opera Mate are more on the powdery side. You do experience the stickiness of Mentor and COUNTERPLAY. They're definitely wearing sticky, not dry. And that's exactly what I got with COUNTERPLAY. But this is a woody, floral, fruity. And I think I would definitely go with that. This description is correct for me. This is once again created by Christelle Laprade. Features notes of sandalwood, osmanthus, melons, guava, bananas, ylang ylang, orange blossom, patchouli, pink pepper. Lots going on here. But it's uber fruity. And again, as I said, melons can be really, really tough for me. I'm not the biggest fan of the smell. In fact, I like watermelon to eat, and I don't like to eat any other melons. And I kind of don't like their smell either. So I was very, very cautious here. And it's a fantastic, strong fragrance. Tropical, sort of, fruity for sure. Almost like a cocktail, like a fruity cocktail. Super potent, really strong with the smell. You've kind of created a cocktail, or you've went to a bar and asked for a cocktail, and they've added, concentrated syrups in there to create this really super fruity experience with the fragrance. So sandalwood makes for a very creamy experience, so it's definitely got that for it. But osmanthus, the melons, the guava, the bananas, all giving you a very fruity vibe in the fragrance. Just imagine maybe something, I'm assuming it's got this very concentrated kind of a cocktail experience, the kind that's got all the fruits kind of popping out of it. That's what you get. Now, this one to me also was very bright and uplifting and happy. Very, very playful. So I feel like that is a very summer appropriate fragrance, but it's super, super strong, guys. As I said earlier, Mentor and COUNTERPLAY are the ones that project the most. The other two are a bit more subdued, but I'm not saying they don't project at all. Just between the four fragrances, the two that I just mentioned are the ones that scream louder. And that's exactly how COUNTERPLAY wears. Let's quickly smell the fragrance and let you know a little bit more about this. But again, all four fragrances are super strong. It's just the two that I'm pointing out to be stronger with projection are definitely the strongest. at least on me. This is a very candied experience. Almost, for some strange reason, I get Midori. Never a fan of it. I've tasted it one time and I put it down and couldn't do it anymore. But I get that kind of a vibe here. This liqueur that was very popular in the 90s gives me that kind of a vibe, but uber sweetened. And it's the melons. They're really, really strong with the guava. The osmanthus is providing more fruitiness in there and also floral touches, but super tropical. Really fun fragrance. I would recommend all 4 of them, but for me, my 2 favorites are Prodigy and Opera Mate. But try 4 and see what you think about them. But I like the coziness of the 2 that I really enjoy. And if I want something loud, I would go for a Counterplay and then Mentor. But to rank the fragrances, my number 1 is Prodigy. My number 2 is Opera Mate. My number 3 is Counterplay. Go figure. I'm into melons. And then finally, last but not least, Mentor. I had high hopes for Mentor to be my favorite because I love ambers. I didn't like them as much as the other ones, so that one ended up at the bottom. But let me know your thoughts on these Mind Games fragrances. Add a comment below. And then also don't forget to take advantage of the Sebastian 15 discount code on just these 4 fragrances over at the Mind Games website, and that saves you 15% off. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.